believe in order here that Jim will be the first respondent to our next question here. And this is a two-part question. Many members of our association, the Christian Chamber, take a special interest in such hot-button social issues as abortion and the definition of marriage. As a member of Congress, would you support any legislation designed to restrict the current level of abortion rights? And regarding marriage, would you support efforts to retain the current Defense of Marriage Act, or would you repeal it? And just as a definition, under the Defense of Marriage Act, no state may be required to recognize as a marriage the same-sex relationship that is considered a marriage in another state. So that two-part question there, Jim.
Okay, on abortion, I'm pro-life. My preference would be to see the problem addressed at the state level. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court made that impossible with the Roe versus Wade decision in 1973, which basically took the issue away from the states and found a constitutional right to an abortion. My copy of the Constitution doesn't mention that right, and they must be reading a different copy of the Constitution, I guess. But, so, you know, what I would like to do is to get new members of the Supreme Court who would reverse Roe v. Wade. Then the decisions about abortion could go back to the states where they belong, and people who are pro-life could fight in the state legislatures to have abortions made illegal again. On marriage, I don't believe in same-sex marriage, and so I do support the Defense of Marriage Act because it's a real problem. I mean, again, you know, I'm a constitutionalist, and the Constitution says that each state has to give full faith and credit to the official acts of every other state. So that's a problem. If a gay couple gets married in Massachusetts, they move to Oregon and they say, oh, well, you know, we're a married couple. You have to recognize our marriage here. And the people in Oregon say, well, we don't believe in same-sex marriage. So the Defense of Marriage Act, unfortunately, is necessary to prevent one state from forcing its perverted values on another state. And by the way, those states that do that, it's all done by the courts or the legislature. The people have never voted on a ballot measure to support same-sex marriage.
I against same-sex marriage. It is against nature. It should be some punishment. I don't know what is going, but my platform is to support Constitution, freedom of speech. It's not government to dictate people what to do, marry or not marry. They want to do, but it's not government business. But more important, I against abortion. But at the same time, it's women's right. You see what she wants. But more important point is educate people. Start education from child. Prevent sex, premature sex. It will be greatly prevent abortion. Sex without marriage is not good. Therefore, have to school from young age start educate girls and boys about danger of premature sex. I against funding for abortion. But if will be nation concentrate on prevention, it greatly prevent abortion, prevent childbirth, because so many women, single women, many of them children go to jail because therefore I concentrate. I have idea to make school separate girls and boys. Girls school and boys. I talk to some parents. Some children don't like, most of them girls don't like it, separate from boys. But I have to study more, maybe give some amendment, talk to teachers, parents about it. Thank you.
I would like to say up front that I am Catholic, and I've raised my 3 sons Catholic. I am against same-sex marriage. I do support the Defense of Marriage Act. As far as abortion goes, I'm pro-life. I'm against abortion. And what is going on with education, trying to teach our children things about sex and things that should be kept completely in the home. It has no place in public education. Young ladies that get themselves into trouble and are able to walk into clinics and have services provided for them is totally wrong. It should be a decision made with their family, people that love them, people that support them. Maybe they can include their doctors if the family wants to bring the doctors into it. But it is a very difficult situation. I was on a jury trial where it was a little girl and she had had trouble with her father from the age of 6 to 15. And that changed me a little inside. It hurt me. It was as if I could never make a decision for her. It was between her and her family, but there are some very ugly situations out there. And I would never promote myself to interfere in a family decision, but I am pro-life, and I think everything should be done to protect the life of an unborn child. Thank you.
I am a Democrat, but I am pro-life, and I am for marriage of husband and wife. I've grown up as a Muslim woman. My faith teaches me that life is sacred, and at the time of conception, life is granted. And so since that point, if you take that life away beyond, other than for exigent circumstances, or if it's a threat to mother, or if there's rape or something of that sort, then it's not permissible. Because that unborn child has, it's of no fault of theirs that they were brought into this life, earth. So that being said, there are circumstances where I mean, in America, like, I'm 26, and I know college, everybody's sleeping around, so it's like, the government isn't gonna, the college students really don't care what the government has to say, and I feel like we've forgotten our moral values, and students at college don't, once you're out of home, it's like it's an open territory to do whatever you want. But I feel like we have to bring some morality back to the government and help students to understand that, it's, adultery has its consequences, and I don't know how we can monitor it perfectly, but it shouldn't have a place in society. And the same thing with same-sex marriage. I think that's something very personal and should stay inside the privacy of the home. The government has no business advertising it, and even if people who are practicing those, I would appreciate if they keep it to themselves and not bring it out in the open. Thanks.
It's nice to be at George Fox, and with that said, I have a short quote from the Bible. This is Job 5:8. And Job says, I would seek unto God, and to God would I commit my cause. And that's one of the reasons why I am running. I am not in favor of abortion, nor am I in favor of same-sex marriage.
Another wonderful, succinct answer. Thank you. Lisa Michaels, it's interesting that you brought up both of these issues together. They were both insidiously implemented for the express purpose of racism. If you look back historically, marriage, let's talk about the abortions. Margaret Sanger started us on the road to the abortion being a commonplace thing because she wanted to limit the amount of black babies that were born. That's just plain fact. Look it up. And what's happened is it has eviscerated the African American community, and a great many of what Margaret Sanger's thoughts would have been about the type of baby she did want to have be born have been aborted as well. Great many of people that I know in my generation who came of age at around the time of Roe v. Wade thought it was cool to be able to have the convenience of having free love and no consequences. And you can make somebody complicit in the murder of their own flesh and blood. You will have them on your idea, in your political party for the rest of their life, because they'll never want to be told that there was anything wrong with what they did. And as to marriage licensing began because the government, after the slaves became free, the government wanted to have a say-so in whether or not whites would be allowed to marry blacks. So that also is a racist thing that was started. In actuality, up until they had the licensing, you had to have two things present in order to have a legitimate marriage in the United States, religious marriage. You were considered married if you got the consent of the parents of your parents, of the wife generally, and you had witnesses. And that, so both of them were established for purely racist motives, and we need to think about that. Thank you.
Interesting. I don't like abortion, but I am pro-choice. I think if we believe the government doesn't do well interfering with business and blah, blah, why the heck would we want the government involved with our personal decisions? As far as, I don't care who wants to marry who, I really don't. If a couple of guys want to get married, I have no idea why they'd want to, go ahead. Women, go ahead. It's an institution that I think was created by the government so they could make money. So you charge for licenses, etc. I do not know. I was in theater for a while, so I know a lot, well, I used to know a lot of gay people. Didn't know one that wanted to be gay. They all said, well, they all wanted to be straight, but they were just born that way. They were born that way. It's because God made them that way. They would do anything to be straight. And they would tell me, why the heck, with all the torment and bigotry and hate that they have to put up with as individuals being gay, why the heck would anyone choose to do that? So, I believe them. So I am pro-choice, and whoever wants to get married to whoever is fine with me.
And follow-up, starting with Jim.
Yeah, I think there are probably some mass murderers who would say that they were born that way also. I'm not persuaded. And, gay rights advocates say they want equal rights with heterosexuals, and I said, well, you already have equal rights. I have a right to marry a woman, and a gay man also has a right to marry a woman. I don't have a right to marry a man, and he doesn't have a right to marry a man either. So we already have equal rights. What's unequal is what our desires are, and that's not my problem.
I think it media promote this, a lot of promotion at homosexuality, some gay marriage, lesbian marriage, I think for money. Some say it is same-sex marriage, it's a person born. I don't think it's choice. Person choose to this way. It's no good for society. I think someday they will understand they are not right.
I do not believe in gay marriage or abortion, and there have been television shows that I was enjoying watching, and they start to promote these causes, and I stop watching the show because I can't stand that they are putting these their beliefs into a program that even children can watch.
If I see two men kissing, I won't even watch that channel again.
I'm with you on that one, Jim.
I can tell you about my experience at college, Lewis and Clark. I think we're confusing our children. They get to college and there's all these things, lesbian groups, the gay groups, and all these other people come there and they're like, oh, well, I might be gay, I might be, like, so it's just like, I've seen reasonable, very good friends try out all these different things, and then they just get more and more confused and they lose their head in the process. And it's just, we need to bring some faith perspectives back into this. So thanks.
I would just like to add, I believe it's very difficult to legislate morals. There's probably a good place for that to happen, but not by government.
Hate the sin, not the sinner. It's very tragic that our society has evolved and degenerated to this level, but they are promoting, make no mistake about it, in our schools. That's why my son goes to private school. I will homeschool him before I'm going to allow him to be in these public schools. They have this thing called the Gay Straight Alliance, and they go far beyond supporting homosexuality. They promote it.
Oh, okay. All right. This next question